rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
It's the Herd on ESPN Radio, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Thanks for making us part of your day, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests via the Subway, Fresh Take, Hotline, and simulcast on ESPNU. You know, maybe it's because I don't have an answer for it. Maybe it's because I've moved around the country and had to be fairly mobile for my job. So I think I don't have the gene that most sports fans do, this loyalty gene. It's amazing how loyal sports fans are. They're not just loyal with rooting, but with their money. Time and time, year and year and year after year, fans spend their money on teams, and it's remarkable. Like my wife and I, if we go to a restaurant and there's like bad service, we'll give it one more shot. And if the second time we go, the next time it's not good, we're done with the restaurant. I mean, should we be more loyal? My thing is, that's a trend. I'm not interested. If I go to an airline and back-to-back times it's a disaster, I'm done. I'll give you a mistake. Fans are incredible. The Chicago Cubs, there's a long-running joke among Vegas bookmakers. David Perdue wrote the story on ESPN.com. You know how many casinos have been built on bets on the Cubs to win the World Series? I mean, that's the running joke in Vegas because everybody always bets the Cubs to win the World Series. Once again this year, the Cubs are 6-1 to win the World Series. Only the Dodgers have better odds. I mean, the Dodgers and the Nationals. Outside of that, it's the Cubs. And more money has been bet on the Cubs than any other franchise. God, Pete, you got to love fans. By the way, Mets fans are like this. The San Francisco Giants are a brilliant organization, 18-1. Right? They 18-1. They started 8-1. That's what they opened at. Now they're 18-1. The Mets, they're 15-1. Better odds than the Giants. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't give the Mets 15-1 odds to win their division. You think they're going to get past the Nationals? Scherzer, Strasburg, Zimmerman, Gonzalez, Pfister? That's the best pitching staff in baseball in a sport that doesn't score any runs anymore. Last year, the Nats beat them 15 out of 19 games. The year before that, they dominated them. And that's with Bryce Harper underachieving. He's going to have a huge year. That's with Strasburg being hurt and underachieving. He'll probably bounce back. I mean, it's just amazing. Who plays shortstop for the Mets? Well, he got Michael Kadire. He'll be good for 88 games. He's 37. Sports fans are like scorpions. You can't kill them off. If you get them at 9, it doesn't matter how hot the desert sun is. It doesn't matter the rock that falls on them. You've got to love sports fans. They can't help themselves. The Mets and the Cubs fans. Had more money bet on the Cubs this year to win the series than any other team. That is just fantastic. And I was saying to the guys this morning, I just don't have that. I mean, you're like, well, what about the Patriots? If Tom Brady retires, I'm off it the next minute. Like Tom Brady, I love football, and he plays the position I most watch, and therefore I think he's the best at the position I most watch in the sport that I love. So, yes, I love watching Tom Brady play. He's the best quarterback, in my opinion, in the history of the game, in a position that matters. So, yes, I like watching him play. He leaves, I'm done. Unless they get another great guy that's handsome, married to a supermodel, and wins almost every game. But when the Seahawks went to the Super Bowl, everybody's like, ooh, you're going to be totally a homer. They were terrible for 20 years. I gave up on them. And like Stanzik looked at me this morning, he's like, and Vince is from Philadelphia. John, I'm not sure where you're from. Stanzik, you're from Syracuse. So you guys are like, how can you think like that? When your team is terrible for 20 years, the way I look at it, I'm not wasting my time on that. I'm from Seattle. University of Washington will never win a national title. They're going to stink this year like they have for most of the last 15. I'm done.
This is, baffling to me. You clearly, I don't know, you have a great fan base and a great following, but you don't connect with America on this issue at all. And here's why, because you're the transient type. You've moved all across the country.
That's probably it.
And you work in sports. So if you're still in Seattle, you live in Seattle your whole life, you'd still root for the Washington Huskies.
I don't know.
You'd still root for Seattle.
Not if they're 20.
Even if they went through 20 years of terrible.
I don't think I could. By the way, I live in Connecticut now for 11 years. I live in Connecticut for 11 years. I like Jim Calhoun, what he did to the program. I've never once rooted for him.
Right, but you weren't born and raised in Connecticut.
12 years here. Never once rooted for him. I don't care. I don't root against him. Never rooted for him. Doesn't mean anything. I like what Calhoun did to the program, so I kind of root for his structure and his sort of power and strength. I think that's great. Never rooted for him once. Am I an alien here?
Again, you become a sports fan when you're young, though. You didn't just become a sports fan 12 years ago when you moved to Connecticut.
I don't understand these people.
You don't get America. I know. It's fascinating.
I don't. The other thing is people watch sports for escapism. I've never once in my life watched sports for escape. I don't get that.
Yeah, you didn't grow up in Cleveland.
Well, I escape from what? I talk for a living. What am I escaping from? I have a pretty wife. I like my life. I like to exercise. I had a cocktail. What am I escaping from? I don't want to escape from anything. I like sports.
I don't know how you get this one either. People work in blue-collar jobs, and it's difficult, and it's hard for them, and they see sports as an escape. They go have a beer with their friends at the game, and they enjoy it. They get away from what they don't like about their daily life.
I worked until I got into radio. Every job I had was, quote, blue-collar. I worked at Airborne Express.
TV newscaster's blue-collar now?
No, my parents made me work when I was 12, okay? So I was doing dishes at restaurants, 12, 13, 14, then at state park, 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, but you're not struggling to pay bills.
Yes, I was.
12?
My parents were divorced, yes. I mean, believe me, my mom used to send me a razor and a cookie. I had nothing for years. So my life was hard-scrabbled to some degree, not maybe as hard as some Americans, harder than others. This whole thing about, I don't get you people. The Cubs are not going to win the World Series. Stop wasting your money. Spend it on your children's education. I don't know. I don't go to sci-fi movies. I don't like Wookiees. I don't understand it. I don't. Can't you watch a game because you love sports? Why do I have to escape from something? It's not Alcatraz here. I don't get it. The only thing I'd like to escape from is if I lived in Indiana, I'd like to leave that. That'll segue into my next story. 9 CEOs call on the governor to modify the religious freedom law. Mike Pence has said over the weekend, he is open to clarifying the new law because large and small corporations are basically going to him and saying, what are you doing? I've heard a lot of people in Indiana and defending the law. Come on, 20 other states have this law. Hold on a second. There are 2 provisions in Indiana's law the others don't have. Number 1, the Indiana law allows any profit business to assert a right to the free exercise of religion. In other words, Christian bakers can turn down lesbians who want a cake. The other ones don't allow that. The federal RFRA does not contain that language. That is the difference. If you are a Christian baker, you could say no to a gay couple wanting cookies. You look like hillbillies if that is something you strongly believe in. Secondly, momentum's a very powerful thing. Indiana looks Jurassic. They look outdated. They look embarrassing. They look antiquated. They look like the face of bigotry. Figure it out. Call your conservative radio show and defend it. There's language in this that is not like the other states. So, and my favorite part of this is, hey, just stick to sports. But no, I'm not going to. The Final Four and sporting events have made this a sports story. It is now a sports story because sports events are thinking of pulling out of the state of Indiana. It's absolutely now a story with connective tissue to sports. And I always love this. Well, who are you to talk about? You can talk about it. You're a caller. Why can't I? I'm a host. It is a sports story now. Sporting events, Pat Hayden, UConn's basketball coach, won't go to the Final Four because the state of Connecticut won't pay for state employees to go to the state. It is a sports story, and it's an embarrassing story for the state of Indiana. Fix it. It's embarrassing. There you go. Yeah, I really don't. God bless America. If you're still putting money on the Mets and the Cubs, you got to love sports fans. You cannot kill them off, man. They are scorpions. They'll buy those David Wright jerseys. They're absolutely sure it's 96 wins. I gave up on the Mariners years ago. They're like a bad restaurant. 20 straight years, bad food, crappy service, dirty bathrooms. I'm done.
Want more of the Herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Charles Barkley, Hall of Famer. All sorts of NBA stuff, doing some college work, too. We got into this discussion yesterday, and I said everybody's different. Kobe Bryant's aloof, and Charles Barkley isn't. Charles a big personality. Kobe's sort of aloof. Kevin Love, they say, is a little bit of a loner. LeBron's not. LeBron's got his cliques and his boys, and he runs with them. And Charles is joining us. Let's go back. Let's say you're Phoenix or Philadelphia teams. I argue, Charles, that you don't have to be buddies with everybody, and on a team you have maybe two boys you roll with. On your Phoenix team, did everybody get along? Who was your best buddy on that team?
Probably Dan Marley and Sid Ceballos. Got along with Mark West. But, guys, it's so funny. I'm glad I haven't been doing the NBA, to be honest with you, Colin, because, I've been kind of keeping my eye on it a little bit. And it's so silly and stupid that, I'm sitting there like, wait, they're making a big deal that Kevin Love wasn't in a picture with LeBron, and like they don't hang out all the time. I mean, first of all, LeBron's got a wife and 3 kids. Kevin Love, I know I met his girlfriend, but you don't hang out with guys you play with. Some guys are in different situations, different times in their life. LeBron lives in Akron. Kevin lives downtown Cleveland. I just think some of this stuff is just hilarious stupidity, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's not like LeBron's going to tell the wife, hey, honey, I know I'm an hour away from home, but I don't want these people saying bad stuff about me and Kevin Love, so I'm going to stay downtown. You take care of the new baby and the 2 young kids. I mean, it's ridiculous, man.
You played at Auburn for 3 years, and I remember your Auburn career. I remember seeing you. I can picture it. In fact, I remember Auburn as much as Philadelphia. Now I really remember Phoenix. But now let's go back to your high school career. Were you good enough to go straight to the NBA? And if you would you have gone? When did you know? How long would you have stayed in college today if you came out?
Well, I think you should stay for 2 years, to be honest with you. I think for 2 reasons. Number one, there's a thing called a sophomore slump. There's no such thing as a sophomore slump, in my opinion. It's just they got tape on you and film on you. That's why a lot of guys regress their second year. It's like a baseball player. Like he hits all these home runs, and they realize the next time around, like, oh, he can't hit a curveball.
Right.
They make adjustments. So your first year, you surprise everybody. The second year, they make adjustments. The third year, you make adjustments. And that's where you find out who's going to be a better player down the line. Like some guys, once they have that sophomore slump, they're not good enough or smart enough to make adjustments, and you never hear from them again. Listen, I've been in the NBA for 30 years. There's only one player I've ever seen like, okay, he can play in the NBA right out of high school. That was LeBron. As great as Kevin Garnett has been and Kobe Bryant, people forget they really struggled early in their career.
Yep.
LeBron's the only guy in my 30 years that says, okay, he can play in the NBA from day one. And that's not the problem. The problem is there's probably a couple guys who probably can do it, but the rest of these guys can't play a lick. And what it does for me, what bothers me is I'm paying this guy millions of dollars, hoping he becomes a player. But what I think the biggest problem is, if I'm a fan, if my team sucks, I don't want an 18-year-old kid who, number one, we're not going to get better with an 18-year-old kid.
Right.
So I got to keep paying ridiculous prices for tickets and hope he turns into LeBron, Kobe, guys like that, Kevin Durant, Garnett. And I think that's what my biggest problem with kids coming out after 1 year. I'm paying prices like I'm hoping this guy looks great. But if you go back and look at the players, most of these guys haven't been good players who came out of high school. Take that Anthony Davis team. They had 3 or 4 guys go in. I think 4 guys go in the first round. And I think the Miller kid went in the second round. Those guys aren't really doing anything in the NBA. Anthony Davis is going to be the best player in the world in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But take all those other guys off that team. They're not doing anything.
Yeah. Charles Barkley, Hall of Famer, joining us, The Herd on ESPN Radio. you were outspoken with the Indiana law. So is Reggie Miller, and I have been as well, because I think I don't like to use this platform to bully people, but there are times with intolerance I think I owe my company and I owe my audience to use it. And the Indiana law, I think, is going to get tweaked. When you have an opinion on that law, and you get a lot of you're a very polarizing guy, but you know how politics is, Charles. When you had an opinion on the Indiana law, is the pushback from fans greater than normal?
Well, I don't know, because I do no social media for that reason. And I never will do social media because, first of all, I think the internet is where losers go to feel like they're important.
I agree mostly, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think that's where losers go to feel like they're important. And I'm very aware you can't make everybody happy. And I don't use my quote-unquote bully pulpit, which is what radio and television are, unless I feel like it's important and significant. And as a black man, I feel the obligation. I try to always put myself in that situation. What I want people to be able to say, you can't eat here because you're black. I'm like, that's not a good thing. And that's the way I feel. Anytime I hear a law that's got a chance of anytime discrimination, I try to put myself. I don't want people like, if I want to go somewhere to eat, if the people have the right to say, you can't eat here because you're black. I'm like, no, that's not good. And that's the first thing when I released a statement about the Indiana thing. And like if they had said, we don't allow Jewish people here, we don't allow Italian people here, or women. I'm going to always fight stuff like that because growing up in Alabama, I'm very aware of civil rights. So stuff like that is really close to my heart.
Charles, we were talking about this yesterday. That obviously you are you're the most popular American sportscaster in this country, and I consider you a sportscaster, not just an analyst. You and Terry Bradshaw. There are certain guys out there that are bigger than the average. Bo Ryan said yesterday, and he didn't take a shot at anybody, but he said, you got NBA guys talking about the college game, and the college game is the college game, and the NBA game is the NBA game. Let me ask you, do you believe that we are trying to make college the pros, and maybe we should just let college basketball be a little slower and be college basketball?
Well, I thought that Coach Ryan kind of overreacted to what Kenny was saying. Listen, we can debate whether Wisconsin plays a different way. They do look they're a lot more explosive. Maybe he thinks they don't play slow like they used to play. Maybe he's just getting better players because Kaminsky is a stud, Deck is a stud, Gasser, I forget, Noel is a terrific player. But I thought he overreacted. Listen, but basketball is just basketball, to be honest with you. I can watch these college teams. I said before this draft, I'll take the top 8 teams, and they're going to win the championship, one of those 8 teams. Because it wasn't like last year where you're going to get a team like UConn that's got a couple good guards who can win games. I said the top 8 teams in this country, they're much better. You saw it in the first couple rounds of the playoffs.
Yep.
Where all those 12 seeds were beating 3 and 4 seeds. But I thought one of the top 8 teams would win the championship, and I still feel like that.
Yeah.
Just watching on tape and watching in person.
By the way, if you could get the Okafor kid or the Towns kid or the Winslow kid from Duke who's really improving, if you had a number 1 pick tomorrow, who would it be? Draft.
I'd probably go with Okafor because I think he's shown me more throughout the season. I think Towns is going to be a very good player also, but if I personally, to be honest, I'm not sure I would take the kid from Ohio State.
Yeah, Russell.
I'm not sure I wouldn't take him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you're talking about a big guy, if I had the number 1 pick, I'd probably take Okafor. But I love the kid at Ohio State. He's very impressive. And Winslow, he's got to learn to shoot the ball a little bit better, but he's got a tremendous motor. And listen, he's playing for a great coach too. Coaching does have something to do with this. And listen, and the one thing that I have been critical, I think a lot of these college coaches, they're first of all, they're all good coaches, but some of them never make in-game adjustments. Like they have a game plan, but they don't never have a plan B. The one thing that's really great about this Final Four, All four of these guys are tremendous coaches, and they make great in-game adjustments. I thought that was very telling, especially Coach Izzo, because his team shouldn't be there. If you look at it on paper, they won because of him. No disrespect to the Trice kid, Valentine, Dawson, any of those guys, but that guy just is a tremendous coach.
Yeah, the fact that Rick Pitino won 3 games and he has a team that has no shooters, Pitino's another guy that's unbelievable. Charles Barkley, Hall of Famer. Charles, absolute pleasure again, bud. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Colin. Y'all keep up the great work.
Thanks, man.
You're in the Herd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
I've got Mark Dominik, former NFL general manager. We're talking about tracking, and I'm going to take some calls during this for people who are tracking people, for people who have been tracked. I have no problem with it. Mark, let's go back. You were an NFL general manager. Justin Blackmon has come into the NFL and had some problems off the field.
Right.
You have a Justin Blackmon story.
We do. We tracked players. I mean,
in Tampa.
Yeah, in Tampa, we would do that. Now, I'd usually use my scouts. You know, we didn't hire outside detectives, so to speak, but we'd certainly use our scouts in their area. And what we would do is we would put dossiers together on each player. And that would include going to their hometowns. But with Justin Blackmon, there was a lot of concerns about what his character was at Oklahoma State. And so one of our area scouts, who's one of my better scouts, I guess is the right way to say it, we had him follow Justin Blackmon around Stillwater. And we found out there was a bar called the Cricket Inn, or the Cricket, which was a popular bar there in Oklahoma State. And so he would sit there for a week. He sat there for 1 week, went in at 3 o'clock every day, and stayed till 11 o'clock at night. That was his job. And we checked how many times did Justin Blackmon come in. And he came in too many times. And we took him off our board.
And by the way, that has been a continuing issue. I'm not sure if it is today.
Yeah, I don't know where he is today in terms of where he's at in his process or his rehab. But that is something that, you know, obviously we alerted us, but that's because we tracked him to find out whether or not we could take him.
You took a kid from Syracuse, Mike Williams, in later rounds, and now you did he with some issues later, but initially did you track him, and what did it?
We did. Mike Williams was a young man that got kicked off a Syracuse football team by Doug Marrone. And so he was a talented player, came to Tampa Bay. He actually had 3 really good seasons with us, you know, 25 touchdowns, over almost 200 catches. Really good 4th-round pick for us, but we had to decide whether we could take him and where we would take him in the draft. And we did research where we went all the way back, not only through high school, but to elementary school, to talk to teachers at elementary school. Saying, what was he as a younger kid? Not like the 1st grade teacher, but, you know, 5th and 6th grade when kids are starting to form who they are and who they hang out with and what they're about. And so we would go all the way back to elementary school teachers. We went obviously through the high schools, spent a lot of time with Doug Marrone, and it got me to a point where I said, okay, I can take this guy. Now, in the end, we took him in the 4th round. He had 3 good years, and then the wheels kind of fell off. But even Doug Marrone traded back for the player that he actually kicked off a Syracuse football team because he knew that Mike Williams, as a young man, was a guy that you felt like you could buy into.
Once he made some money, though,
it changed him.
Yeah, it did change him, and that's very, very hard to predict. Have you ever passed on a player, Mark Dominik, and it came back, and more money made him solved issues? Were you ever concerned, and you look back and go, you know what, he overcame some stuff?
Well, I think the one that I'm sitting at right now is Justin Houston. I think every National Football League general manager in the league is kicking themselves in Justin Houston. He failed the drug test at the Combine. You know, we're talking about Randy Gregory and what happened with him, but Justin Houston failed the drug test at the Combine. It scared everybody. And so he drops. Now Pioli takes him in Kansas City, and now he's probably the second best pass rusher in the National Football League.
Yeah.
So you sit back and look at it and you say, how do you dissect the issues? And you got to really kind of departmentalize each one, and you can't just put a blanket over guys and just say, well, you failed the drug test, I'm moving to the 2nd round. Each guy's his own case, and you have to dig into each one of them.
Mark Dominik joining us. Now, this is interesting. Now, I'm from Washington State, and I would say marijuana, the state is mostly green. So marijuana in Oregon and Washington and my West Coast background, California, it's a much more, I would say, liberal approach to it. Maybe that's why Louis Riddick and I disagreed. I said, the way pot is viewed in society today, we don't know that it's not cocaine. It's not heroin. You're not going to get addicted to it. And there is sort of a legitimizing legalization of it. Does pot scare you? Can you change your mind on a drug based on societal and cultural changes? Does pot mean as much today as 15 years ago?
I don't think it means as much. Now, I do look at it this way. Certainly not to the level of cocaine, like you said, or meth or any of the other drugs that are out there. For me, on marijuana, the reason why I don't like a positive test specifically in Randy Gregory is he knew it was coming. See, the guys that know what's happening, the guys that are all getting ready to be tested right now in the National Football League, they all know that the test is coming. So if you can't stop for 60 days,
bad judgment,
then you're making poor choices. Now, does that bleed over to being late for practice? Does that bleed over to so that's where you have to. That's where you put that whole thing in a basket and say. And with Randy Gregory, he has multiple, and not just the combine, but other ones in college. So that all.
Would you take him?
No, I have to push him down. Would I put him on my board? Yeah, I don't take him off my board. No, I'm not going to do that.
But you're not going to go first, second round, maybe.
I don't feel good in the first round. I really don't, and I still think Randy Gregory is going in the first round.
Yes,
because somebody's going to feel like they can do it.
I can tell you, I am what I am, a radio idiot. I think there's only 2 can't misses in the whole draft. I watched Leonard Williams.
I know you, and I knew I was going to talk to you about Leonard because I feel the same way. He's the safest player in this entire draft.
I think the combination of speed and athleticism and
the kid.
The other kid I like, and again, this depends on the quarterback. I think Amari Cooper's very interesting. He's not a burner, but nobody caught him. I think he is a good route runner. Sometimes he can ad lib a little, but wide receivers ad lib all the time. Yeah. I think he's the only. He's my second, if not can't miss. He will absolutely be productive in the NFL.
I don't see how Amari Cooper misses either, and he's one of those guys. Not to the level Bolden ran slow, but Anquan Bolden is faster when the ball's in his hand. For some reason, if you ran Anquan Bolden, I bet you in a 40 when he came out of college, without the ball in his hand and with the ball in his hand, I bet he ran a faster 40 if he had just put the football in his hand because something happens internally.
There are players who are shoulder pad fast.
Yes, shoulder pad fast, and I think Amari Cooper is that guy. Because like you say, when you put on the tape, guys don't catch him. And he ran good at the combine.
4.42.
Yeah, so, I mean, he really ran good, but I don't see what's wrong with him. From a character standpoint, from a dependability, watching him catch the ball, very natural and very smart. I don't see the miss either, and that's where I say he may not wow you like he's Julio Jones built or A.J. Green or Andre Johnson. He's not built as big as those guys, but you go to sleep at night saying, I love my draft
I get
pick.
80 catches and 6 touchdowns a year for him.
Easy. Yeah, I think you do.
Okay, we were talking about tracking, and Mark Dominik, former general manager, is saying he tracked people all the time. All right, this is Dan. It's a fake name. Dan, I said I believe my audience, men and women listening to my show, are being tracked or tracked. So, Dan, fake name, tell me your story.
Well, absolutely. Several years ago, wife went through a bunch of emotional, issues, personality disorder stuff like that. She was a total flight risk. It's been years, therapy, medication, all that. She'll totally admit it now. But she'll actually wonder, I can't believe you didn't do more to track. What do you have to hide? If people are afraid of being tracked, all these NFL players, like you're talking about, one of your producers said somebody that's running our nuclear submarines and our pilots. Why don't we want those people tracked and monitored? If you got something to hide, I don't want you doing that. Wife was out of control at a certain point.
Dan, I totally agree with you. In fact, I want to know about my pilot. I want to know about his depression issues. Let me take one more call on this. Mike, you're in the herd. Thanks for holding. Mike, go ahead.
Hi, Colin. Thanks for taking my call. I love the show.
You bet.
My only problem with it is this, and I have no problem with the background checks and stuff like that. But if you're fine with someone following someone around on an airplane and stuff like that, which is basically stalking, what's the line? And, the last call brought up the nuclear submarine. I'm sorry, that has to do with national security. Not the same thing as tracking an NFL quarterback prospect.
Well, the line is, to me, the bigger the job, the bigger the vet. And so I've always felt the more important the job, the more I'll vet because I'm taking a capital risk. Mark Dominik.
Think about how you get sworn into the levels you have to go through to vet to become a Supreme Court justice. I mean, think of just how much background information you do just to become a presidential candidate. How much digging do they do into that? Look, in the National Football League, when you take, let's say, Jameis Winston, #1 overall, which I think the Bucs are going to do, if he does something wrong, you're the club that gets paid with all the embarrassment, the fines. Without the player, it hurts you. And you can only ask these players so many questions. You're only allowed from an HR perspective.
That's right. You guys get destroyed.
If we pick a bad kid, then we get destroyed, and we're
for asking a tough question.
For asking, not even just asking a tough question, but when the guy gets arrested, then we're the organization that was dumb enough to take him, and why didn't we know better? Well, the only way to find out and know better is to dig as much information you can, and not to the point of stalking. There's a difference, I think, there. You are just trying to gain information. You're trying to watch him from afar to see how he
Okay.
acts.
How about this, Stanzik? Now, let me ask you. You're a college kid, Stanzik, so you're irresponsible.
I turned 29 2 weeks ago.
Did you really?
College kid? Are you kidding me?
You're just immature. Okay, Mark,
spoke
let me
at
ask,
college.
would you look at, okay, I'm a quarterback.
Yep.
And there's, people are saying, the kid may have a gambling issue. So Colin, kind of looked like one. So I'm a world-class Division I athlete. Would you check a dumpster behind my house or apartment? Would you say, check his mail? What's in there?
No, I wouldn't go to that point. I never went to that point.
Okay.
No.
You'd go to a bar, though.
Yeah, I would watch. I wanted to see more interaction, like interpersonal relationships.
What about a person on a flight? That didn't bother me at all.
I don't think that's a big deal. I mean, let's be honest. Everybody on that flight was probably watching Jameis Winston, right? I mean, that's Jameis Winston. Who wasn't watching him?
Okay, so flight you're okay with. Dumpster diving you're
Yeah,
not.
that to me that's private investigating work. It's a little bit different.
Would you hire a PI?
If I felt like it was that critical, yeah, I do think I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's a reason why there's a whole organization of people called private investigators, because people hire them, and so it's not illegal to do that. And again, these are multi-million-dollar decisions.
First pick in the
The
draft.
first pick in the draft, and you want to make sure you're right. And so the more information you can gather to be as educated. Do we really know anybody? I mean, so you just try to get as much information as you can on each specific person, like we did with Gerald McCoy. We went down to his house in Oklahoma.
He was a great player.
He's been a great player. And really, there was nothing really to worry about Gerald, but because he was such a good kid, a two-time captain, but we wanted to make sure. And so we took pictures of his house. We went down where, his high school, took pictures around his high school. This is the area he grew up in. These are the people he associated
So
with.
you're a little bit of a sociologist, psychologist. I get in trouble for that sometimes, but you have to play that role.
You have to. You have to. And that's where you get back to your guy, Leonard Williams. And you sit there and you do all the research on him and you say, boy, I like this guy.
By the way,
There's nothing not to like about him.
Steve Sarkisian told me about Leonard Williams, who I think is the best player in the draft. He said he wanted to stay. Like Sark said, oh, no, he would stay. He knows he can't because of the physical nature of the sport. But he liked college and the experience and his teammates so much.
Yeah.
He wanted to stay in college, but he just knew the game. So, I mean, my little background on Leonard Williams, people loved him at USC.
Yep. Everything I've had, people love him too. And the reality is players like that who are going to be second, third pick in the draft, wherever he ends up going, he's starting his free agency clock early. And that's part of the reason why they come out.
Yeah.
The really good ones.
Great seeing you, man.
You bet.
That was good. That Justin Blackmon bar story, that's amazing. That is. That's fascinating.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Yeah, title or no title. We'll get to that, too. How about that, though? Mark Dominik saying we went to a bar as an organization in Oklahoma City and had a scout sit in there, and Justin Blackmon we thought was there too often. And I don't have a problem with it. I think some people, you want the big corner office, but you don't want what comes with it. And if a company's going to pay you 7 figures, sorry, we're going to track you. Deal with it. My rights. You know what? You don't have any rights. When you're undrafted and I'm going to spend $10 million on you, you lose a lot of your, quote, what you envision as rights. I'm going to – and by the way, anybody can spy on anybody in this country. I mean, you really can. If somebody wanted to just track me all the time as soon as I left ESPN, they could. Yeah. I mean, seriously, what is Facebook? That's stalking. Stalking with a smile. I mean, what is Facebook? How come all you guys go back and look for the cutest girl in high school? What about the chunky girl with a good personality? You're not on her Facebook. You're stalking. I mean, that's a large part of Facebook. It's weird. Amazing. How about this guy? Hey, John, you're in the herd. Go ahead, bud.
Hey, Colin.
Hey.
Hey, man, I started having some trouble with my phone a while back, man, and wouldn't hold a charge. Took it to the AT&T guy here in town, and he said, well, here's the problem, man. You've got this GPS app running all the time. And I was like, what GPS app? And he's like, well, there's a GPS app on your phone that's tracking you. and that's going to a computer. When he looked on the phone, what computer was going to? It was going to my wife's computer. She had put it on my phone without me knowing, and he was basically watching everywhere I was going. So there you go.
Are you still married?
Been married 30 years.
So it was fine. She just wanted to make sure she knew where you were hanging out at night, right?
Well, I kind of knew something was going on because every time I would go where I shouldn't be, she would start asking me like a lot of real vague questions that evening, and I'd be like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Wow, she's like really on top of me." And
where would you go? Like a strip club or something?
No. Like if I had like a friend who happened to be a female or something, and I would like go by her job and check on her or whatever, or something like that. Nothing out of sorts, but and she'd be like, "Oh, have you talked to so and so lately?" And I'd be like, "Well, what's the odds of that? I hadn't talked to this chick in like a month." And she's suddenly asking me the day after I seen her, went by her job and seen her, she's asking me if I talked to her. I should have put it together, but I just didn't. And like I said, the AT&T guy hit me up. He's like, and when I told him, I was like, "What app?" He just looked at me and smiled. He said, "Man, you're being tracked."
Wow.
So,
well, it sounds like a very loving and trusting relationship there. I just,
Hey man, in one way I was kind of upset, but in another way I was kind of like, "Wow, she's really stepped this up. This is pretty good." I was actually kind of proud of her.
Yeah, I mean, you're like a top draft pick there, man. She was a general manager and you were a draft pick.
Yeah. Believe me, I'm not a draft pick.
Thanks for the call, bud. That's pretty funny. We got to get to Scott Boras going to be on the show today. I want to do that title game, but your board's all screwed up. Can you play the title game?
We're good.
All right, the game is in honor of Jay-Z Tidal, the new streaming service for artists. We got into this discussion this morning, and I said Carmelo Anthony's the most overrated star of my lifetime, along with Stephon Marbury. He'll never win a title. And we started naming guys, and I'm like, never win a title. Title, no title. Title, no title. So we'll play the game for a couple minutes before we go to Scott Boras. Go ahead.
Title or no title?
I'm judge and jury here. So Stanzik?
Yeah, and executioner. I'll say a name, and you say title or no title.
All right.
Very simple.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
Cam Newton.
No title.
Won't mean a thing, because he won't have a ring.
Nope, never win a title. He's good, but he reminds me a lot of Big Ben. He makes mistakes, but Big Ben's got a great organization behind him.
Big Ben's got 2 titles.
But he's got the Steelers behind him. That first title was about the Steelers, not about Big Ben. Cam will never win a title.
All right, what about your 2015 NBA MVP, James Harden?
What a chump.
Never going to win a title. By the way, it's a joke. He'll never dominate the glass in a series. He'll never dominate the defensive end. The fact that LeBron's not NBA coach, executive, and player of the year is outrageous. James Harden is a really good scorer. So was Dominique Wilkins, George Gervin. James Harden will never be the centerpiece of a title ever.
All right, me and Vince think no on this one, but we're going to put it on a tee for you because you have a man crush. Andrew Luck.
Yep.
Someone call the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's going to win a title. He'll probably win several. I'll give him 2. You guys are ridiculous. You're drunk. You don't think he's going to win a title. First of all, if Brady wasn't in the league, he would already be in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he would have got housed.
Okay, he would have been housed. So did Peyton Manning. Andrew Luck. Now, again, I'm saying a title. Andrew Luck will win a title. Give me another one.
Kevin Durant.
No title.
That rings from a Cracker Jacks box.
No, you know why? I think Westbrook and he are not a perfect fit. I think Westbrook takes shots from him. It's not the injury. If he does leave, he's going to go to a New York or L.A., and it's going to be a rebuilding for 2 or 3 years, and he'll be out of his prime. So, again, and I've said this to you, I said this several years ago, Durant's going to be Stockton. Durant and Westbrook are Stockton Malone. They'll get close. They may get to another championship final. I don't think he'll ever win a finals.
All right, Tony Romo on the show tomorrow.
Someone call the Hall of Fame.
Yep, he's going to win a title. 1. Now, here's why. Now, again, Vince is, just because he's an Eagles fan, here's why. Because for the next 5 years, Tony has 5 more years to play. Is that reasonable?
Well, he's 34 and his back's shot.
Okay, let's go 4. Let's go 4. He is going to have the best offensive line in football for 4 years. That's better than 50%. If I told you, right, Tom Brady, for all the great love of Tom Brady, you want to know why Tom Brady's always good? It's not just Belichick. He's never had a bad offensive line. Tom Brady's never had a bad offensive line. All the Peyton Manning fans always say Brady had a better defense. Brady didn't have a good defense until last year. He went 9 years with mediocre defenses. He's always had a good O-line. Once Tony's got 4 years with the best offensive line in football, he's going to get there.
Now the question is, How many?
Okay.
All right, one more. Matt Ryan, Atlanta Falcons quarterback.
Nope.
That rings from a Cracker Jacks box.
Nope. And like him. But I think he's not the kind of quarterback like Aaron Rodgers or Luck who can physically carry you. So he would need organizational excellence and operational excellence. And I don't think Atlanta's roster right now for the next several years is there. I think Matt's going to have a great career. I don't think he is a transcendent talent. In fact, I think Tony Romo is a better talent than Matt Ryan. I think Jay Cutler is a better talent than Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's more mature than Jay Cutler and has more stability.
Won't mean a thing because he won't have a ring.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
All right, we're going to go a little off the board here with a non-quarterback in football, but J.J. Watt.
What a chump.
No title. He's a defensive end. They don't have a quarterback. There isn't one in the near future they're going to get. He's not going to stay physically. In 5 years, he won't be the same player. So the game of title, will you be the centerpiece of a championship team? If he goes to the Patriots when he's 37, maybe he'll win one. But he's not winning one in Houston.
All right, Chris Paul, never been to a conference finals, but everybody loves him. Chris Paul.
This is tough. I really like Chris Paul. I consider him a friend.
So does LeBron. So does Melo.
Title.
Someone call the Hall of Fame.
I think I have a feeling because I think Durant Westbrook break up and the Spurs are getting old. I mean, this San Antonio team, this is the last leg, I promise.
So that's a title for the Clippers in the Steve Ballmer era?
Golden.
Blake Griffin, he's counting on this too?
Can I retract that? Let me retract that.
All right, Chris Paul, never been to a conference finals.
I'm going to go no title, but a great career.
Welcome to No Titleville. Population U.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get a. You're right.
All right, let's go with another guy you talk about all the time, Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, no title. No.
That rings from a Cracker Jacks box.
No, that's not. He's not going to title. He's not. He lacks the maturity, and I don't think he's evolved. And by the way, you're going to miss Jim Harbaugh a lot more than you think. That Jim Tom Sula thing, that thing has got disaster written all over it.
All right, what about Steph Curry?
Title. Couple.
We'll be blinded by the bling.
Yeah. Curry's going to win a couple. Now, it may not be this year, but that kid's got 10 years left in this league, and he's got 8 prime years. You can shoot like that for a long time. I think he's going to win a title or two.
All right, we're going a little off the board here with a coach, Chip Kelly.
Does the college national championship count?
Yeah, I guess.
Title.
Now the question is, how many?
So you think he'll leave the NFL and win a college championship so he won't win a Super Bowl?
First of all, you don't last forever in the NFL. And Chip Kelly was born to coach. So if he gets whacked in the NFL, he's going to go to college, and I guarantee you, he's going to get and I will tell you this, he'll be the highest paid college coach ever. He'll get a $10 million offer from anybody that's looking for a coach, like a Florida, Bama, depending on what happens at all these massive programs. He will get offered a job at any one that doesn't have Urban Meyer. I'm telling you, he will set a record. By the way, Jeremy Foley at Florida wanted to hire Chip Kelly. But Phil Knight's like, we gave you a break. You're not going to Florida. So Florida wanted him.
Okay.
They didn't want Will Muschamp. They wanted Chip Kelly.
That was quite a revealing answer. That's all I'll say. We're playing title or no title. Move right along to Anthony Davis. New Orleans Pelicans, superstar, NBA. The Brow.
I don't know. Not if he stays in New Orleans. No title.
What a chump.
No, got to move out of New Orleans. That's not a city where stars are going to gravitate to. I think he's going to leave. Nobody wants to hear that, but I think he'll probably move on at some point. Orlando doesn't keep guys.
All right, this is kind of related to the Chip Kelly. Another coach, he's in college now, was in the NFL, Jim Harbaugh. College title.
No. He didn't want to.
Won't mean a thing because he won't have a ring.
He'll win a bunch of games, but he's not going to win a championship. By the way, he never won one at Stanford, and he had Andrew Luck. So he will win a bunch of games at Michigan. They will be a 10-win program. I don't think he'll win. First of all, good luck getting through Penn State and Ohio State and Wisconsin, because especially Ohio State and Penn State, their recruiting is ramping way up. Give me one more.
Andrew Wiggins.
All right, let me pause. Nobody said I had to give an answer in 3 seconds. Yeah, ring. He'll get one.
Now the question is, How many?
I'll give him one, but he will not.
Wow.
He will not end his career in Minnesota. You know he's not going to end in Minnesota. He's going to go to a. He is going to be. First of all, he's had a terrific rookie year, terrific defender. Offensively, he's growing. He is going to be a great, great NBA player. He's going to be a 7, 8, 9-time All-Star. Andrew Wiggins is a terrific player. He is going to be, of all these young guys in this league, Anthony Davis is already a star. Wiggins is going to be a star. Jabari Parker I haven't seen enough of. But Wiggins is going to be.
He's been injured.
Yeah, Wiggins is going to be an 8-time All-Star or more in this league, and he'll win a title. And that's a kid that eventually would go to an L.A.
All right, we want to sneak in one more here, okay? Because there's some obvious no's on our list.
Title or no title?
Yeah, if we did Andy Dalton, you'd say no. If we did Derrick Rose, you'd say no.
Right.
This one, interesting. Jameis Winston.
No title. No.
Welcome to No Titleville.
Yeah,
Population U.
Yeah, and he's not going to win a title. He's just not mature enough. He'll be fine. I have a feeling he'll go in the NFL. He won't be a total bust. He will. He'll play. He's got too many skills. But he's not. I just don't trust his maturity. Scott Boras, the Cubs, doing something just because they can, and I want Scott to explain this to me. I think this is a fascinating story. Super agent, Scott Boras next.
You're in the herd. The Thundering Herd podcast.
Yeah, we got into this discussion yesterday, and I nobody ever likes to take the lawyer or the super agent side on stuff, but I said if I was Chris Bryant and I had an unbelievable spring in a sport where people are struggling to hit 300, the kid hits 425, and it's not like the Cubs have an all-star third baseman. How are you not resentful down the line if you're basically kicking my free agency down the road, kicking the can down the road, and Scott Boras is joining us? Now, other guys have done this, Scott. I mean, you're an expert in this. This is what you litigate. This is what you do for a living. I'm not. But other guys have done this. Why does this one specifically bother you?
I think the process on this, Colin, is one where, independent of my thoughts, like you have a former GM who has come out and said, this player has to be on this team to make the Cubs the best team because he's a major – there's a difference between prospects and major league ready prospects.
Right.
And Chris Bryant is a major league ready prospect. And when fans know that the performance is so extraordinary, I mean, Chris Bryant has hit 67 home runs in roughly a year and a half of 200 pro games. He has done things, he's the minor league player of the year, the Arizona Fall League player of the year. And when you have former players, major league players are evaluating this player independently and saying, this guy hit 9 home runs in spring training. He's got an OPS of 1,600. He belongs in the big leagues. So independent of his advocates' evaluation, all these baseball experts are saying this player belongs in the major leagues. So it creates this dynamic for the fan to say, what is the major leagues? And then you have the conduct of other organizations. For example, Jock Peterson. Jock Peterson also has had a nice spring training. 6 home runs, 1,100 OPS. He hasn't had a Chris Bryant spring training. And last year in the minor leagues, Jock Peterson hit 33 home runs and hit 300. He didn't have a Chris Bryant season where Bryant was the minor league player of the year and had 43 home runs and 110 RBIs and actually did better than the fine season that Peterson had. What did the Dodgers do? They called Peterson up to the big leagues in September. They didn't worry about the clock. What are the Dodgers doing in September or in spring training? They could send him down for 2 weeks too. And they could use the argument that we're going to preserve his rights for an extra season. The Dodgers aren't doing that because they want the best team on the field for the 2015 season.
Now, Scott,
and I think the aspect of the fact that the fans are confused about this and why the best player always in the big leagues, and then you have organizations doing things on a basis of the same evaluation. You can say puts Peterson in the big leagues, yet greater performance on the part of Bryant puts him in the minor leagues. So I think it's very confusing for all.
Scott, let me ask this, though. Go to the individual person. If ESPN came to me and said, we're going to keep you at our AA affiliate because we want to retain your rights for another year, I know it's business, but why isn't, like if I was a player, Evan Longoria, this happened to him too, aren't players a little resentful? Basically, you're saying, we're going to pay you later than we want to, and I put like 15 years into this sport. Isn't Chris Bryant, aren't players upset when teams do that?
Well, first of all, the presumption that everyone assumes, Colin, is that this is appropriate under the CBA. Teams are prohibited from assigning players to the minor leagues solely for purposes of service time manipulation.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, they are.
This is not allowed. And so if you can demonstrate that the club is acting in bad faith and solely for purposes of service time manipulation, then certainly you can be subject to a grievance hearing, and there can be a review of the conduct of the club in each situation.
So Rob Manfred, the new commissioner, said it's none of your business. I argued yesterday, this is your business. When Rob Manfred says that, the commissioner of baseball, what was your reaction?
I really believe the commissioner's point of view. I told him I was going to send him Marvin Miller's book, and maybe he can take a post-Marvin Miller approach rather than a pre-one, but and get a little bit more modern about the thought process of what we all do, because I work through the auspices of the MLBPA and certainly player representation, and really what we want for the fans in here, Colin. We want a balance. How can it be that the Dodgers do what they do and put Peterson in, who's a fine player and such, and they call him up, and the Cubs don't do it? And so when you leave player control based upon the idea of service time, when you believe that in the individual Cubs, it becomes an ownership issue. Do the owners want to take and preserve the rights over a player, or they want to have the best team today? And I think in the best interest of the game, we have to have a system. We have to have an independent panel. Then we have situations like this. That panel has to determine whether or not the player is major league ready, and certainly evaluators can do that. And then if the player is determined to be major league ready, the fans and everyone are aware of it, and then the clubs can so see fit to put the player in the big leagues.
Will you file a grievance? Are you going to file a grievance?
That's really up to the union and what they do. They have to evaluate the facts of each situation and determine whether it's appropriate to do so.
Okay. Scott Boras, I appreciate that. I needed some clarity on this situation. I tend to agree with you on this, Scott, and I appreciate you stopping by our show.
Colin, always a pleasure.
Scott Boras, super agent on that. I think the Chris Bryant story is a very interesting one. I find it very interesting. I've told you, I love reading about baseball. I like talking about it. I can't watch most major league games 4.5 hours. I can't. But this right here, to me, is a very compelling issue. He is clearly a superstar on the horizon. And the Cubs are saying, and Theo's a smart guy, we're just going to keep you in the minors for 12 days, even though you're the best player potentially we could have very quickly. And we're not going to give I don't know, do the Cubs open at home? Do they open on the road? How many home games would he miss? 9, 8, 7. But in the end, are you manipulating? Like Scott Boras said, you're not supposed to do this.
Colin Cowherd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Story out about Jameis Winston and how Peter King said 75 people have been interviewed that know Jameis Winston. And there are other stories out. Charles Robinson, who does great work at Yahoo Sports, where they put people on planes Jameis Winston is on. And I said, I don't have a problem with vetting and tracking at all. Doesn't bother me a bit. If you want the corner office, it comes with some loss of privacy. That's the reality. If you're in the federal government, loss of privacy. If you're being drafted, military, loss of privacy. Senator, loss of privacy. Talk show host, loss of privacy. I mean, you're going to get drug tested at certain places. Is that infringing upon your rights? Well, don't smoke out if you want the good job. So it doesn't bother me at all. I have nothing to. It's funny because when I travel, when I got remarried, I go on these West Coast road trips to fun places. Like Mike and Mike have to go to Pittsburgh a lot and Cleveland. I always got to go to Vegas, Miami, Los Angeles, New York City. I got to go to great places. They're wild. They're fun. There's beautiful people. There's great food. And so I always thought my wife was kind of like, and I said, honey, I eat hummus. I'm in bed. I have to do a show, and I got to be up at like 4:30 in the morning. So, like when I go out west, I have to get up at 4:30. I can't go out and party. And LA doesn't start partying until about 11. Same with Miami. So I'm in my room eating hummus, taking naps. You really don't have anything to be worried about. And I used to always invite my wife with me. I'm like, come on with me. I'm bored out of my mind. Vince knows I'm a hermit on the road. I am a hermit. I am like, Howard Hughes without the fingernails and wealth. I am so boring. And this week, I'm going out to L.A. this time, and my wife's going, finally. I'm like, let's go. Let's go. But would I track my wife? I don't think I'd ever have to. I wouldn't be a fan of it. But I don't know. I ask people, how would you track your wife? Julius, you're in the herd on ESPN Radio. Go ahead, bud.
Hey, what's up, Colin? Listen, I have an ex-wife now, and I would also tracking. You know, I knew something was going on. She was never where she said she was going to be. The old trusty, rusty iPhone allowed me to not only track her, but track the gentleman she was, let's say, gallivanting around with.
Yeah.
And so we were in marriage counseling, and I brought it up. I said, hey, I know you've been here. And she said, no, I haven't. I brought up everything. She stopped talking to me. She didn't even talk to me through the whole divorce. And here's the kicker. The other gentleman was a detective. So not even the detective knew he was detective by I won't say the app, but there's an app that you can track just about anybody. So it saved me from paying alimony and child support because now I have everything.
Well, good for you. Congratulations. I root for people who are in, ugly relationships to get out of them, Julius. So
yep.
Congratulations. And you got smart, as the old detective show was called. Get smart. Yeah, I mean, if you're in a bad relationship. All right, here we go. This is quick. Nate, you're in the herd. Go ahead, bud.
Hey, Colin, thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I actually would like to know from these GMs who are tracking these players, which I actually agree with. I think it's a good idea. But I'm curious, if they catch one of these guys while they're tracking them doing something illegal, is there an obligation to call an authority figure, or is there something that they should do to follow up on this? If, say, they catch him in a drug deal, an assault, something that police should be involved with, are they supposed to contact the authorities, or they just keep it to themselves?
There's a show called Intervention, and they watch people buy drugs all the time, and they don't call the cops. I think that's an interesting. Okay. Let me ask myself. That's a very good question. No, Stanzik, you're shaking your head. I think that question's a very good question. If I'm a general manager and I see him dealing drugs,
no, you let someone else pick him and assume that player is going to be a bust. It's all about the competitive advantage.
So you think I should not tell anybody?
Yep.
Oh, that's
you invested in finding out whether or not he was worth it to draft. You found out no. Let someone else make the mistake. It's better for you.
That is evil.
It's Machiavellian is what it is.
It's really awful. That's a horrible thing to do in life. You are literally the poor kid's out there's got a meth habit, and Stanzik's like, yeah, not my problem. I hope the Buccaneers draft him. I'm the Falcons. That's awful. Really, I think
it's smart.
You know what? I don't believe in hell, but you're going there. You're going to purgatory, the exit right before hell. That is awful. Basically, you're saying let society, let him rot, okay? Let Darwinism take its course, basically is what you're saying. Let the poor guy just shrink and evaporate due to his...
I'm doing whatever I can as a GM to get to the top. And if that's kicking other GMs and letting them make mistakes, that's fine. The end justifies the means.
You got to love that story by Mark Dominik. They tracked Justin Blackmon, and they went to a bar on campus for a week, watched. He was there too much. They didn't draft him. I feel bad for Justin Blackmon, but Mark Dominik's theory is, hey, we're spending the money. He's a superstar potentially. We're going to track him. This stuff is good, man. Stefan or Steven, go ahead, bud. You're in the herd.
Hey, Colin. Thanks for having me on. Love your show.
Thanks.
Hey, I don't think I would ever be able to track my wife unless I had reason to or suspicion. But if I ever have a daughter, I think I'd have, especially in her teenage years, I think I'd have to put a GPS tracking device in her phone.
Wow.
What do you think about that?
What do I think about that? Boy. You know what? I'm not going to tell a parent how to parent. If you have some level of distrust, I just don't think it's my – I have opinions on everything, but I don't think there's a right way to parent or a wrong way. I don't think I would, but I don't believe at this point I have a need to.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
I'm George Sedano, and on the latest NBA Lockdown podcast, Al Horford dashes the Wizards' hopes, possibly, and have the Warriors figured things out against the Grizzlies. Download the podcast at ESPN.com/PodCenter.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. That one is gone. The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.